we have a Dynamics developer from Headforwards, a local company here, so we're on their turf. David honed his UX skills for over 7 years at Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service, building systems so robust that even firefighters couldn't break them. He's a passionate advocate for user-first design and holds a professional diploma in user experience design. He's here to talk about strike plates and handles, UX doors, and a desperate need for cake. So please put your hands together and welcome up to the stage, David.
Thank you, everybody. So I am David, as Paul's just said. Currently a Power Platform Dynamics developer, but I have spent 10 years as a professional UX nag. Studied UX and delivered a number of successful projects for some organisations, including a lot of stuff to do with document management and filing of wiki structures and all that sort of stuff. But UX isn't just about software. It's anything. Everything has got a user experience. So in this talk, I'm going to focus on a few key points and a few sort of case studies that can help you when you're developing and designing your product, be it software or a spoon or something like that. Helps if I turn the clicker on. Voila. So the idea for this talk began during lockdown. You can all remember that. And what my wife and I used to do on a Friday is we'd take it in turns to pop down to the local cafe to get some coffee and some cake, just to sort of alleviate the monotony of home working and sort of seeing everything all the time. Something to look forward to at the end of the week. At the time, the doors to the cafe looked like this. Now, it's a quick thought experiment. Bear in mind, keep in mind what you're thinking. Use cases, you need coffee and a cake. Which way do the doors open? Bear in mind, keep that. A new company took the premises over after sort of the rent went up and all that sort of thing, and the other company had to go out of business. Very sad. The new company came in and completely redid the building. And now the doors look like that. They haven't changed the doors. The doors are the same. They just painted them and put push handles on. Which way do the doors open? So the human brain isn't made to think about things, everything all at once. What's focuses on is what is your main objective to there. My main objective for that to get into the doors when they look like that wasn't, I need to open the doors. It was, I want a cake. I can now go in and have a nice cake now from this place. They put the prices up, but they're very good cakes. I'll tell you more about it if you want to see me later. The other thing, of course, is when you are trying to pull a push door, you're feeling silly. And the whole point of having a business is to take people's money and to make your customer feel good. So they sort of already walked in, and I saw this many, many times, even did it myself, just pull, not go, and then you stumble in. So you've already made the customer feel silly, which probably means they're might not be spending as much money when they go in and that sort of thing. But anyway, yes. And this whole idea about the push-pull door handles and that sort of stuff is good design encourages flow. And if you have smooth flow, then people won't realise they're actually using something. And that's good, because then we don't have to think about the bit that we need to do to get in the door. We can just keep in mind, I want that lovely, delicious cake. And this brings us to the first thing to think about, is this thing called an affordance. It's a term that's been in use for UX for quite a while, sort of coined or made popular by a guy called Don Norman, who's kind of the Don for UX design and that sort of thing. And an affordance is the idea that you're able to work out and assume how something works by the way that it looks. There's something designed there. All of the things, icons at the bottom there, we all pretty much know what to do with them and how to use them because we've seen it happen before or because they feel and they look in a certain way. So with the pull doors, you're used to having a hand like that, and that just encourages you to pull. If your hand's that way in its own, then actually that could be a pull or a push. If you think of shopping trolleys, we know how to use those. But if you change those handles to a plate, you can't pull that. You need very, very, very strong fingernails, maybe some sort of glue or something, but you can't pull them. You know exactly what you've got to do. And the thing to really remember about with affordances is you can put instructions on how to use them, but the affordance will always overwrite those instructions. To be fair, the guys at the cafe did know it was a problem, and they tried to fix it with Microsoft Word. But yeah, it just reinforces that if a thing looks like it works in a certain way, and because this isn't our main objective, it's our background, it's our subconscious thinking that's going to inform how we use it and what we expect the outcome of that to be. UX design is part of the art of designing for unconscious behavior, and that's really tough sometimes, but hopefully I'll give you a few little tips and bits and pieces to be able to do that bit better later on in the talk. So I'm going to be using the word thing a lot in this, and it's because I'm trying not to talk just about software. So when I do that, it's a thing. The thing is something that is being developed or used. UX is a problem-solving discipline, and UX designers are able to solve those problems by understanding the problems and talking to users, doing research, and really involving the end user. Not a customer representative or that sort of going direct to the user, and understanding what we want to build to solve that problem. And there's two things that we can use to define what we want to build. We've got objectives and we've got features. So objectives, very simply, are I want to do a thing, or I'm using this thing to accomplish something. The tools of UX revolve around, so like I said, research, and that could be through client interviews, one-on-one interviews, workshops, talks, observation of being able to actually see people using something, and through all of that and doing sort of maybe surveys and stuff, you're able to pull on a lot of data, but you're also able to create a really good relationship with your users. And from that, you're able to identify your core users and your edge cases. And then you can always then focus primarily on your core users and then put the edge cases just off to the side to see if there actually is a problem that's going to be something that you need to think about. The other side, of course, is features. So once upon a time, features were very much, everything was feature first, because if you build something with lots of features, it's better. You know, we've got torches that could have 18, 19 brightness levels. You've got, on my drills, I have many drills, I've got 20 degrees of torque settings on my drills. I'm not entirely sure how it works or that sort of thing, but it's a good number to have. More features makes it look like we've done more, and that's better value for the customer. And it's easy to market as well. If you've got this with this, and there's all these star-spangled lovely bits and pieces. And I'm going to introduce you to something I use on a weekly basis. This is my tumble dryer. It's a pretty standard condenser dryer. It's got a lot of features. It's got a lot of cycles. There's three main control sections on it. So we've got this one, which is a rotary dial, which I can see there. I can sort of refresh, and I tumble dry a baby for some reason. I haven't tried that one, but yeah, I'm not sure. So that's how you select your program. You've then got this thing, and I can have something to do with a clock, and then something to do with a sand time thingy, and I've got buttons here, and there's lights that come on when I switch it on, and all that sort of stuff. And it's also got, I can have 4 levels of dryness, which I think I select by pressing that t-shirty thing with the sunshine on there. There's also, with this tumble dryer, when it works, it beeps. It tells us it's working. When it's not working, it beeps. And there's a particular error with this model of tumble dryer, that there's, round the back, there's some thermal switches for fuses to stop it from basically exploding and catching fire and causing mass fatalities. And the way that it tells you that is it beeps like it's ended a program, and then it will flash these LEDs, which you can't see that well, 21 times. I know it's 21 times because when I was doing a YouTube video to try and find how to fix my tumble dryer that just stopped working, the man told me on there. I haven't counted. But yeah, it's a really simple fix. But because the tumble dryer is in a cupboard, I have to take it out. Anyway, it's a whole thing. But not only that, it's also got this thing called NFC, which has got an app. And there's even more cycles in there, and I can get statistics. And I've got smart care in there, and I've got, so who wants to guess how many? I don't need to guess. I've done the maths on this. There's 500 cycles, independent cycles, including the app. Which, to put it another way, I could use my tumble dryer 1 day a year, but once a day for a year and a half, and I wouldn't need to repeat any cycle. I use cotton. And I use cotton because it's automatic, so it's a posh tumble dryer. It's got a humidistat inside that levels, so that's how it knows how it can get its 4 levels of dryness. I use it because it takes the right amount of time. It doesn't shrink my clothes. If I don't fancy tumble drying something, I'll hang it up. I don't generally tumble dry my shirts, because I find they shrink and that sort of thing. And if it's a nice day, I'll hang the stuff outside. But in order to find out how any of the other stuff works on there, I need to look at the manual. And I know through looking at the manual that there's weight limits on some of those cycles, and some of them aren't for drying, some of them are for relaxing my creases. But that's always nice. But if you think about the time and effort it's taken to program all of those cycles, the money it's taken to research and develop it, test them, they've also got an app that they have to keep up to date, and they've had to design a manual, and they've had to design various different interfaces for graphics, as well as doing all of the actual stuff the tumble dryer needs to do. You can sort of think there's a slight mismatch there, and that's because they've gone for features first. So just here's features versus objectives. This is a very long list of features that my tumble dryer has. Some of them are required, so it needs a rotating drum and it needs to be able to heat stuff. It's a condenser dryer, so it needs a water tank to fill it, and then I need to know what time, when it's filled. Do you guys know how it tells me if the water's filled up? It beeps. So we think about the features, but what are my main objectives? But I've got a sub-objective as well. So all of those features and all those 500 cycles aren't really helping me anymore to get dry clothes out of my tumble dryer. But they're there, and they're causing a barrier to my use sometimes. Actually, they're not. I just turn the knob, wait, then bing, bing, bang, and and I wait till it beeps. But objectives in this case, we can, how do we find those? And that, again, is about turning to our users and having a conversation with them. And it's not what do you want this? Do you want to do this? It's what are you trying to achieve? And that's where you can have a really good conversation with people. And once you have those objectives, you then know what user stories to start constructing. And those user stories then will indicate what features you need to build. So focus on objectives. Because, like I've said, the features, they cost resources. They cost a lot. There's a lot of excess that's gone into that tumble dryer. I've used the app once. Do you know how I know if the app works? When I put the NFC up to the phone, the phone up to the machine, it beeps. So we've got objectives, and that was quite a big objective. So we need to look at a way of being able to define smaller, more manageable objectives, and that's where our friend context comes in. So in this case, context is the stuff that is going to constrain and focus on to help us build something that we want that's going to help solve the problem. And we can, again, discover those through conversations, through workshops, through observation. Observation's a really good one that's not used enough, of actually seeing users out in the wild to see how they are using something and that sort of stuff. But context is a huge, huge thing in itself, and it covers everything. So it's the physical thing, how something looks, how you interact with something, legality. So with the tumble dryer, it's got to meet certain electrical standards, and there's certain safety standards for the tumble dryer, because our tumble dryers started catching fire a few years ago because they weren't being built properly and they were getting too hot. But there's also things to think about in the environment that you're in. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? And emotional things. What is the user going through at that point? Are they rushing to try and get the tumble dryer done so they can make breakfast or that sort of thing? How are they feeling? And we're going to do a little bit of a case study with this bit now, is that I'm going to introduce you to my mate Brian. Brian has an objective. Okay, so that's quite a big objective. So we'll go and we'll have a conversation with Brian, and I want you all to put your thinking caps on and that sort of thing. You're going to become solution architects with this. Here is our tech stack that's going to help Brian put stuff up on the wall. They've all got various features. They can all be used in various ways, and they all allow Brian to hang something on the wall. Some of them are a bit more orthodox than others. Some require more skill than others. But we're going to have a chat with Brian to actually learn more about the context of his objective. So first off, we're going to say, Brian, what is it you're trying to hang on the wall? It's a picture. Okay, cool. That's not helped reduce the number of potential solutions we've got, because all of those could hang a picture on a wall, some more successfully than others. So they would sort of find out a bit more about the environment Brian's in and that sort of thing. And he lives in a rented house. Okay, so we assume that Brian probably wants to get his deposit back at the end of his tenancy. So I think, yeah, all of the, we have to take away glue. Glue's a pretty permanent solution for hanging stuff on the wall. All the others, well, they're creating a couple of holes, we can fill those in and that sort of thing, it won't be a problem. So we then have a bit more about Brian's skill level and that sort of thing. He's not very good at DIY. Okay, so it probably means he doesn't own a vast amount of tools. And, I'd say, probably drills and screws are out of the question there, because he probably doesn't own a drill or be able to use a drill. I mean, hammers and nails, a hammer is a tool, but anyone can use a hammer. And then what we need to do is to find out a bit more about not being good at DIY and a bit more, again, about the environment in the house. He doesn't know where his water pipes, his gas pipes is where his electrics are. So what he doesn't want to do is put massive holes into things to sort of electrocute himself or flood the house and that sort of thing. So we can then sort of go, okay, well, we don't want any hammers and nails. And then hooks, they're not particularly long nails, but you might have pipes just below the surface. So, okay, so we've got rid of hooks. And now we're left with two, rope and the removable sticky strips. Okay, and now we can sort of go a bit more for Brian. We've gone off, we've had a thought. We go, okay, we've got these two potential products left for you. What do you reckon? And it turns out he didn't go to Scouts, so he's no good at ropes. And that through that context, and we've understood its objective, we now know that removable sticky strips are going to be the best thing to help Brian hang that picture. And what we could do from there is then go and start maybe prototyping or that sort of thing with it. And in this case, a prototype, when I'm talking about it is that early version of something. And they can be low fidelity in terms of it can just be paper with some drawings on, up until high fidelity prototypes, stuff that look like the finished product, but don't have a lot of the logic or any of the extra bits and pieces put into the background to make it all work. Prototypes and POCs, there's a sort of a blurry grey line in this one. Prototypes with this, we will design a prototype for each stage of design and test things and that sort of thing. So proof of concept is more there to sort of prove that something works or doesn't work in this one. So there's a subtle difference. But why we want to do prototype is because a prototype can be low fidelity or high fidelity, and we don't need to build a fully fledged product. It can be rough and ready, but we can go out and we can use a test with it. And when we test with those, what we're doing is we are testing our expectation of, we think this is going to be the thing that is going to solve our users' problem, and they're going to love using it. And it will be proved right or be proved wrong, but we prototype and we test early. We do a whole cycle of that, of iteration. So that we're able to increase the complexity of our prototype until we get to the stage where we're happy to sort of think, okay, we can hand this over and we can get our developers to start building it and all of that sort of stuff. The other thing about this is that also if we're involving our core users and we're showing them prototypes and we're working with them, is that they're seeing progress and they're seeing how their feedback is having a direct effect on the product that we're building them. And it's really, really powerful to be able to sort of go, this, you said this, so we've made this change. And then we go out and prototype and we go, yeah, that's cool. So I'm going to show you another item in my house. It's another well-used thing. We use it every day. This is my hob. It's nice. It's got everything is nicely aligned. It's got stainless steel body. It's got cast iron grates. It's been well used. It's not new to me. It came with a house when we bought it 7 years ago. Thing is, I have been using it every day for 7 years, but I don't know which knob controls which burner. I always have to look down a bit closer and I have to look at the icon. That's in there. The actual turning on of the hob is fine because I'm used to doing that. Just turn it and click, click, boom and all that. Well, hopefully not boom. But what's happened there is, so the hob has been designed with aesthetics as being a real lead and a real priority. And because it's a gas appliance, it's got to have lots of engineering and to make sure that it's safe as well. And because it's also consistent with the way that all other hobs look and work and act, it's sort of seen as that's the thing to do and all of that. So the context of that time is to think about that, sort of about the practicalities of controlling gas flow and legislation. It has to be a certain size so I can get all my pots and pans on there. But it's I still have to look down to go, all right, it's that one, and I still get it wrong, even when I'm looking at the icon. I mean, the icon itself is a bit like that. And if you think about earlier with the word push sign and that sort of thing, we're trying to solve an error with, let's call it an error, with instructions. If you think now, that icon that's in there has been designed and it's gone through processes and it's been cost money and all of that sort of stuff. And yeah, what we're talking about here, So, yes, so this is something that could have been solved with prototyping from lower fidelity and all that sort of stuff. Like this. So that is my hob. It looks nice and ordered. It's basically just circles and squares. Like I said, it's consistent with normal design. But it's a prototype that's ready for user testing. Now, if only I had a room of users to test with stuff. Does anyone want to go over laser? Right. So there's the button. There's the business end. Health and safety. Don't shine it in your eyes, you go blind. Right. So usability test. Usability test is basically we give a user a certain case that they or scenario that they want to accomplish and to solve. With this one, I want you to imagine you want to put on a big pot of pasta. You want to turn on the big burner. Can you shine the laser at the control you think is going to be that one? That one? How sure?
No, that one.
That one. How sure are you?
Oh, not at all.
Okay. So confidence rating, bit low.
Probably about 20%.
About 20%. That's brilliant. I don't know if that's the right one either, because it's not got the icons on. But this. Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause. Yay! I'll put that there. When I'm looking for that laser slightly in a couple of slides' time, can you remind me that it's down there, please? So what's happened there? I've just done a usability test with a low fidelity prototype, and we've already learned something, is that our control interface doesn't match our thingy interface. Well, that's okay. So we can, because we haven't actually committed any code, that sort of thing, I was just done that picture in PowerPoint, and I've done that, and it took all of those seconds to actually work out we need to have to think about this. So usability testing, you start early and do as often as practical. And there's no prescriptive way of saying what is practical and that sort of thing, because it will change depending on what the product is and how often you've got access to your users. And always test the main user group and focus on them. Sometimes for political reasons and that sort of thing, if you work in an organization, you might need to test other groups, but make sure you are primarily testing your main user group. And it doesn't need to be high tech at the start. So we've done a usability test then. We found out we're not entirely sure what knob to use to control what burner. And you know what? We're thinking we can do better than this. We don't need to solve this with an icon or some pictures or that sort of stuff. So we've got the boffins together and we come up with another prototype. Can I have another volunteer, please? I will come down. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Again, health and safety. There's the button. Don't shine that in your eyes. You'll turn into a mutant. Okay, so this time you want to heat up a little saucepan of soup. A little saucepan of soup, and you want to use the smallest burner. Can you shine the laser at the thing that you think that one? Perfect. Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Round of applause. So the reason that is so much easier is because the controls match the same layout as, I suppose, the interface. I suppose the hobs, the burners are an interface. And now that we know that that works, we can pass this on to the next level of prototypization. That's not a word, it's now. The next level of development and design and that sort of thing. And if you think about it, what's that actual cost in terms of real resource? It's cost my time, it's cost a couple of users' time. And we already know, actually we've already learned an awful lot of stuff, is that we haven't now got to design instructions or icons to back up where everything is. And actually this sort of design of hob is quite common with induction hobs, which induction hobs, I've got a whole other bunch of UX issues and that sort of thing. But at least you know which thing controls which thing and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think we'll move on from that one. And we'll look at just sort of summarising a few bits and pieces. What we've looked at is we've looked at affordances, the idea of being of that. If something looks like it's going to work in a certain way, people are going to try to use it that way. Objectives are the things you want to focus on because they will inform the features that you want to build. The context of something will help you to define your objectives to little bits and pieces. And then once you know what the problem is that you're trying to solve, and you've identified the tools that you're going to solve it with, you can do the prototyping. But all along that prototyping, do lots of usability testing. And test as often as you can, because the real feedback will beat assumptions every time. If I go back to our old friend, the door here. And there's a little thought there to have come up with something is user error. This might be controversial to say, but user error doesn't really exist. It's just a user is trying to use it in a way that's made sense to them. And generally, it's not their primary objective. If you think the time you've not been able to access a website or something because you want to buy something, but something's got in the way, well, your primary objective was to spend money on that website. Or, in this case, my objective was to get cake. It's up to us in our roles as designers, developers, product owners, and that sort of thing, to make sure that we're involving our users as often as possible, to find out, to test the assumptions, and to build things that require no thought to use at all. Hopefully, this short talk has given you some new ideas or has made you think in different ways. It's a struggle to put users at the centre, and sometimes it's a right pain in the backside as well. But ultimately, it's worth the effort and the time and the struggle, because you'll come up with something that works in the way people are expecting it to. You'll have fewer bugs because you've already designed an awful lot out of that through prototyping and user testing. And you'll just be much happier people. There's 3 books I would recommend to sort of read for this. The Design of Everyday Things, there by Don Norman. So Don Norman is part of the Norman and Nilsson group, who are humongous in UX. And they've sort of have been the sort of the founding fathers, so to say, of the whole user design methodology. But that book there can be quite dry, but it's very detailed and full of really useful recommendations and theories and explanations of why some things are good. Knowing how to phrase questions to get information that you need when you're talking to your customers or your clients or your users is difficult. And then Rob Fitzpatrick's The Mum Test, I've said that right, you just spelt the word wrong. It's a short book, but it's very focused and gives really good examples of what are good questions to ask and what are bad questions to ask and why you should ask those questions. And then The Inmates of Running the Asylum is, it's a classic UX book that's a really good read. It focuses on Alan Cooper's experiences with where he's got things wrong with developing software and how he's been able to improve things and all of that sort of stuff. But with that, no further ado, thank you very much.
Absolutely brilliant. We have plenty of time for questions. So does anyone have a question for David?
I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you. Great talk, by the way.
Thank you.
Just curious, when you or your partner bought that tumble dryer, did you buy it because it had so many features? Or did that come with the house?
No, I bought the tumble dryer because my nephews had broken our previous tumble dryer somehow, and we needed a tumble dryer, and that was the right price.
All right. Do you think if the tumble dryer company, whichever it was able to charge you per use, they would have designed a completely different user interface, maybe with even like a robot arm to grab clothes from your body?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was with the tumble dryers and washing machines as well. I mean, who uses Who here uses a washing machine? Everyone. Yep, you probably only use the one cycle on that as well. And I think there's something there in if someone can come up with sort of the easy appliance company and that sort of thing. Go ahead, design it, build it now, I'll take my fee later. But the sort of thing of just turning it on and using it and that sort of stuff, with features like a robot that disrobed you, yeah, why not? I'm sure they'd make lots of money.
Great. Any other questions?
So,
You're there.
so Agile encourages us to iterate on products. So from version to version, we might be moving the buttons around, trying out different things through A/B testing. And obviously there's a group of users who now have an expectation of how things should be, who are being disrupted by us messing with it.
Mm-hmm.
How do we handle that?
Test. Just send it out and test and that sort of thing. You'll know if it's worked well because they'll be able to use it. It's also sometimes is that when you're trying to find, like I said, do as often as is practical. If you know that you're coming up with a time where actually we're going to be making a lot of changes to an interface or the way that something works, don't go out and test that until you're at a point where you think it's relatively stable now. Or if you can sort of just grab the odd user for a quick test or that sort of thing as you're going, involve them then.
Hi, resident contrarian. How do you? I'm still forming this question. So the cafe example, the best UX for the user obtaining cake is no door. How do you have any tips for navigating prototypes that may initially sound like they're ignoring other requirements, but you might not think those requirements are valid, and it's worth trying ignoring those requirements, at least initially, to then learn.
I think it's. Oh, that's a very good question. You've got me thinking now. Dear me. Oh, right. So with the prototypes and that sort of thing, if you're designing for it to solve a particular problem and all that sort of thing, I think with your example there with the door being open, well, part of the requirements and the context of that cafe environment is sometimes they do actually just have the door open when it's a nice hot day, but sometimes they need to have the door closed because we live in Britain and it rains and it's cold and all that sort of thing. But it's the tricky part of going through in terms of that cafe, what services and objectives and that sort of thing does it need to meet versus the things for the problem you need to solve. And it's teasing those little nuggets of gold out of users through the conversations and then sort of through sort of the observation there, which was really good to actually see how people are working in the environment that you're building the thing in. I think, did I answer that? I felt I said a lot of words.
Yeah, thank you. No. It's just some insight.
Hello. So you talked about user objectives and they were quite broad. I know you self-use cotton, it works for you. How do you balance when you're just trying to design a product that has a whole range of users and a whole range of sub-objectives and user preferences? Maybe I have triplets and I've got loads of baby clothes to wash and that's the feature for me. So you're trying to be all things to all people, I guess. How do you balance not cramming those with features to keep it simple to meet the objective?
There's a design rule called, I can never say the word, so bear with me. It's the paradox of specificity. Said it. Where the idea is the more specific you design something and build something, actually has a much wider use, just because it's very useful for that one thing or that sort of thing. Big example of that is, I think seen lots of people with them today, is the little carry-on, roll-on board luggage. They were originally designed for aircrew, because they're small enough to go in the lockers where they need to go. They're big enough that they've got maybe a couple of days worth of clothing and change and that sort of thing. The wheels work well on airport floors, and yeah, but that was very specific design there with this, that, and the other thing means that actually everyone's found it useful. And you know, if you started to sort of think, well, actually, what we need, we've got people with you know, toddlers going around, so they'll need an extra bit strapped on to sort of for all of the snacks and snacky doodles and all that sort of stuff, or that sort of things. That the more specific you can become with your design, and it makes no sense at all, which is why it's called the paradox, the easier it will be to use. And then when you want to create new features, it's then to go, what is the specifics of this bit, and does it upset any of the other bits that have made this bit, this thing so successful in the first place?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? No? I think we're all good. Fantastic. Another round of applause for David.